it's Friday. I'm not going to insult anybody by pretending it's still Thursday, but we're doing our best this week, okay? And today I'm going to be showing you how to make a little dragon puppet with a little asterisk at the end of it. I am a little bit out of my depth when it comes to making wearables, and so while I have done my very best to translate what I did here into something that you guys will be able to replicate, I can't guarantee that it'll fit. But hopefully what I can share with you today will get everybody on the right path for anything. But hopefully what I can share with you today will get you all on the right path. And I will also add that I understand that a bunch of you have managed to intuit how to make one of these for yourselves, which is just very exciting. But just in case you got stuck anywhere, I wanted to put these notes out anyway. So let's get into tools and materials. Okay, let's talk tools and materials. So to make your little dragon friend today, you're going to need 8-ply 100% acrylic yarn in 3 colors. So you're going to need a main color, like I've used pink on this one here. You're going to need a highlight color, which I've used in the wings. And you're going to need a toenail and spike color, like so. Now I am showing off the prototype. This isn't necessarily the final one, but the final one was Mr. Bones and it doesn't fit me. You're also going to need some pins and needles, a 3.5mm hook and a 4.25mm hook, because we're making ribbing, which means you need to upsize your hook. I'm going to be using a pair of 9mm safety eyes today, but you can replace those with scrap yarn if you prefer, and a pair of scissors. But that's it. Okay, so here are all of the pieces that we need to make in order to make a little dragon puppet. And I'm just going to start with the leg instructions today, because that way, at least if it's not going to end up fitting you, you're going to know really early before too much effort goes into the rest of it. So yeah, we're going to start with some feet. So my dragon actually has feet in 3 different sizes. I have one size that I use for my pointer finger and my ring finger, a slightly smaller version I use for my pinky, and a larger one that I use for my thumb. But they all look approximately the same size when they're on my fingers. So I'm going to start by showing you how to make like a medium-sized foot, because that way if it ends up being too small, you can use it for your pinky finger. And if it ends up being too big, you might be able to swap it in for your thumb. So we'll start in the middle and that'll give us some room to move. So we're going to start in our light color and we're going to make a magic ring of 6, but we're going to change to our main color in the 6th stitch. So we'll just start by making that magic ring and work the first 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The 6th stitch is going to be a color change. So I'm just going to tighten this magic ring off most of the way, leaving myself enough room to still work into it. Just going to make the color change a little easier. Then the color change itself, I'm going to insert my hook into the magic ring, yarn over and pull up a loop. So I have 2 loops of my old color on my hook. Hold that out of the way and grab a strand of the color we are changing to, which for me is this lovely juicy teal color. And I'm going to pinch that on the inside of the work, or the wrong side at the base of the stitch, yarn over and pull it through. Then just going to tug on my tails until that stitch scooches down into position and finish tightening that magic ring. Now we are done with this iceberg for this piece. So I'm going to just tie my 2 tails together in a very technical double knot. But however you want to tie them off is probably fine, if we're honest. And trim that off. So that should leave you a finished stitch in your brighter color, but your darker color is now on your hook, ready to go. So in row 2, we're going to work 2 single crochet. 1 and 2. Then 3 single crochet all into the same stitch. 1, 2, 3. And 3 single crochet back to the start of the round. 1, 2, 3. In row 3, we're going to work 2 single crochet, changing to our toenail color in the 2nd stitch. So that's 1 and this time I'm not trimming off my old color because we're going to change back to it once we finish working up the toenails. In our yellow, we're going to work some toenails now. So what we're going to do is work a treble crochet in the front loop only of the next stitch around. So a treble crochet is when you yarn over your hook twice, insert your hook through the stitch, in this case just the front loop of the stitch, See that? And yarn over and pull up a loop, leaving you with 4 loops in total along your hook. We're then going to yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the second 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. And there is our finished treble crochet. We're then going to kind of fold it over to the outside of the work and work a slip stitch into the back loop of the same stitch. Like so. So there is our first little toenail. We're going to do that again. So treble crochet into the front loop. And slip stitch into the back loop. That's the second little toe. And for this third and final toe, we are going to treble crochet into both loops of the stitch, but we're going to use it as a color change back to our teal. And so what that means is that the final yarn over and pull through, we work as our color change. There we go. So those are our 3 little toenails done, and we're back to working in our teal. So to finish this row, we have 3 single crochet, back to the start. 1, 2, and 3. So a couple of things you can do to make this particular row easier if it is a little tricky is just work the whole row in the same color, and it'll just look like he has toes instead of claws. You can also choose to skip doing little toe bumps and just give him little foot nubs. And to do that, all you would do is work a single crochet into each of these stitches around instead of the treble crochet and slip stitch combo, and then just the treble crochet at the end that we did in this case. And so that would make it easier again. The rest of this piece is now worked in our teal, so we can trim off and neaten up the rest of these colors a little bit. And from row 4 onwards, you have to choose whether you're making a small size or a medium size. I will be showing you how to do both simultaneously here on screen. So we'll have small here on the left and medium here on the right. So both of them start with 2 single crochet. Then for the small one, we're going to work a single crochet 3 together. So to do that, we are only working into the treble crochet from the previous round. We are not working into the slip stitches. So that's 1, 2, and 3. There's our single crochet 3 together. And the medium is just a decrease. So that is a decrease using the first 2 treble crochet. Then it's 2 single crochet, 1, 2, and the medium is 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and both rows end with an increase. So the small will end up with 7 stitches in your round and the medium will end up with 8. For row 5, the small is 6 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then an increase to finish the round, leaving you with 8 stitches around, and there is no row 6 for the small size. And the medium one's row 5 is 8 single crochet. So for the small size, there is no row 6, but for the medium, we're going to do a second row of 8 single crochet around. 7 and 8. And at this point, what I want you to do is try your foot on, and your finger should fit comfortably into it, because basically once we add the ribbing, which we do in the next step, this choke point does become a little bit tighter. So if your finger doesn't fit comfortably in there at this point, it's probably not going to fit after we do the next step. And this one here has obviously been made to fit my fingers, and so it does. I'm just trying to show you sort of how easily that fits. And I will be carrying on with the medium one on screen from this point onwards, but know that the next step is exactly the same for the small size. Okay, so from this point in the foot, we're going to be doing something called join as you go ribbing, or JAYG ribbing. And this is going to be something that features pretty prominently throughout our dragon. We use it for each of the feet, as well as to make your hand or wristband and your handband, and for the head as well. So it's just like lots of ribbing. And it just basically creates slightly stretchier stitches that I think help the pieces stay on. So for the feet, we're going to do chain 6, join as you go ribbing. So what that means is I'm swapping to my 4.25mm hook. And I find this a very necessary part of the process, because if I do this whole thing with the same hook size, my ribbing stitches end up being too tight for me to work into. You might not have that problem. This is just what I literally have to do to make this technique work. And I'm trying to be open and honest about these things. So with your 4.25mm hook, we're going to start by chaining 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that final chain is a turning chain, so I do pull it quite tightly. We're then going to turn and work 5 slip stitches down those chains. And it's really important that you don't pull these slip stitches very tight, that you just work them with a nice loose tension. You don't have to be cartoonish about it or anything, but I have to think loose. I have to think loose the whole time I'm doing this. So there we go. So that's 5 down those chains. I'm then going to find the next stitch of my leg. And working in the front loop only, I'm going to slip stitch into it. Like that. And we're using that slip stitch like we would a turning chain. So we've slip stitched and now we turn. And we skip the slip stitch we worked into the stitch of the round. And instead we focus just on the 5 stitches going back up that chain. Working into the back loop only, we're going to work 5 slip stitches back up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I will encourage you to count 5 stitches every single time so that you don't lose any. But when we reach the top, we're going to chain 1 and turn and work 5 slip stitches back down the back loops only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Find the next stitch of our leg and slip stitch into the front loop only and turn. So we're basically going to repeat that same technique of just working up and down the whole way around this leg until we reach our final stitch. And I have specifically looked up the official proper name for this technique, which is join as you go ribbing, so that if the way I'm describing it is terrible, I have given you guys the tools with which to find a better tutorial, because I guarantee that there is an expert in wearables out there that is just making this so easy for folks to understand, and I am making a muck of it. So I'm out here doing my best to, at minimum, point you guys in the right direction. And I will say that this technique is the time-consuming part of this pattern. Everything else is pretty straightforward. I can also say that if you do not enjoy join as you go ribbing, you can just make a separate piece of ribbing, starting with a base chain of 6, and sew it on afterwards. Apparently that's something that is pretty common to do for like sleeves and such. So feel free to do that here as well. I like the simplicity of just removing as much sewing from this as I could, as well as because your fingers have to go in there and it's not just being stuffed and finished off that way. It's kind of nice not to have too many like extra tails in there. And I like to minimize the risk of us sewing the legs shut, which hasn't happened to me yet. But if I make enough of these, I can almost guarantee it will. So there we go. I have just stitched into the final stitch of my foot and I'm going to try it on. And because, as you can see here, I still have a slight opening where the sides are laying down and I want mine to be closed off. So what I'm going to do is work one more row back up to the top, which will gain me just a little bit more room. You do not have to do this bit. That's a way just to cheat a little bit more width out of the feet themselves. 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to finish off here, but I'm going to leave a bit of a tail. So here you have some options again for adjusting the fit a little bit. For Mr. Bones, he needed a little bit of extra room at the back of his so that when he flexed his fingers, the feet didn't come flying off. So all we did for him is we took this tail, his wasn't as long as this, and we just pulled it through the top at the other side. I had him put the fingers on. We worked out where a good point was for him and we ended up just like tying it in place, leaving that little opening breathing panel at the back, gave him that extra bit of flexibility. Now for mine, I prefer to have mine sewn shut. They tend to fit me a little bit better and mine stay on that way. So you can see here that I've just slip stitched down. In this instance, because I wanted to show you how to do both closing off methods, I have just trimmed it off, but I'm going to use the big old plastic needle and sew the two sides together. being careful not to sew the leg shut. There we go. So there is my finished medium and my finished small. So there is my finished medium and my finished small, and I have made a second medium as well. So now we can win some three-legged races, but we really need a fourth leg. And I've just found that the thumb needs to be made slightly bigger, so I thought we'd make it as a separate set of instructions. Now, because there was such a big difference between my thumb and Mr. Bones's thumb, I am going to be showing you how to make the one that fits my thumb today. So first I'm going to walk you through how we make the one that fits my thumb, but then after that I'll pop up the instructions for the one that fits his thumb, because it's just the difference of like an extra increase or two in certain spots. I mentioned that today's pattern is more like guidelines than actual rules, right? Okay, so for our thumb, I'm going to start in our light color with a magic ring of 6, changing to our darker color in the 6th stitch. So this is the exact same way that we started the other 3 feet. Then in row 2, we're going to work 2 repeats of 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, and then 3 single crochet into the same stitch. 1, 2, 3. So that's 1 repeat, and we're going to do that again. 2 single crochet, and then 3 single crochet into the same stitch. In row 3, we're going to be building the toenails. So we start with 2 single crochet, changing to our toenail color. So in our toenail color, we are going to work a treble crochet in the front loop, then a slip stitch into the back loop of the stitch. So that's 1, and we're going to repeat that again in the next stitch around. Treble crochet in the front loop, slip stitch in the back loop of the same stitch, and then finally a treble crochet through both loops of the stitch, changing back to our dark color. Then all in our dark color, we're going to work 5 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There we are, much bigger foot for the thumb. And we're going to just take a second and clean up back here a little bit. So I'm going to just trim off these tails, and just tie them, a few of them together to just make sure everything's nice and secure. You could have done this as you went. I didn't for some reason. So row 4 starts with 2 single crochet, 1 and 2. Then a single crochet 3 together, and we work that in just the treble crochet. So we skip the slip stitches. There we go. And then 5 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then it's just 2 rows of 8 single crochet for a combined total of 16 stitches. And 16. There we go. So at this point, you need to try this on your thumb. And keep in mind that your thumb is supposed to fit in sideways with the toenails pointing like upwards, like so. So once again, the ribbing will make this a slightly tighter fit. So if you're really struggling to get your thumb in there at this point, you might want to try the larger size. All right, so now I am swapping to my 4.25mm hook, and I'm going to work some chain 6 ribbing around the opening of the foot here. And that's worked the same way as we did with the other legs. So we chain 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Work 5 slip stitches down the chains. Slip stitch into the next front loop around the foot. Turn, skip your turning slip stitch, and work 5 slip stitches in the back loops only, back up those chains. chain one and turn and repeat the whole way around the foot. And while I do that, just for convenience sake, here is the instructions to make the large foot as well. You'll see that there's some key changes around rows 2 and 3 that's just going to be allowing for a bigger opening. The ribbing is worked exactly the same way, it's just you'll have to work more of it to reach the whole way around. So there we go. Once again, you have the decision to make as to whether or not you want to leave this open or sew it shut. And once again, I'm going to sew it shut. Though you can, of course, slip stitch the two sides together. It's what I did for my pink one. Saves you a little bit of sewing. I wish I'd left a longer tail here, but we're just going to try and make it work. There we go. So there is the thumb. So now we have all 4 of the little legs we need. The next piece. So now we have all 4 of the little legs that we need. We have to work on this main body structure, which is made up of multiple pieces. So we have the head finger, we have a finger band, a pair of wings, a body piece, including the wristband or handband, and a tail. So that's just like a lot of pieces. So we're going to start making the head, because I think that's the piece that most of you were saying that like the rest of this you could kind of like intuit, but the head piece you needed a little help with. So let's do the head next. Okay, so this piece is made entirely in our main dark color, and we're going to start at the tip of the nose with a magic ring of 6. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Row 2 is 3 repeats of a single crochet and an increase. So there is the first one, single crochet and increase. There's the second one, and single crochet, increase. So that should leave you with 9 stitches in your round. In row 3, we're going to build 2 little nostrils. So we start with a single crochet, then a treble crochet. So it's the same way we made the toenails. Bobble it over to the outside, 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, and a second little nostril. So treble crochet, then 4 single crochet, back to the start of the round. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So make sure that those nostril trebles are poking out on the outside of your work. Nobody likes an internal nostril. We're then going to work 2 rows of 9 single crochet for a combined total of 18 stitches. 3, 4, 16, 17, and 18. There you go, curious little sniffer. So row 6 is then 3 repeats of a single crochet and then 3 single crochet into the same stitch. 1, 2, 3. So there's our first one, and we're going to do that 2 more times. So single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch, single crochet, 3 single crochet into the same stitch. It's then just 3 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1, 2, and 3. Row 7 starts with 2 single crochet, then 3 single crochet into the same stitch, 7 single crochet across the top of the head. 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7. 3 single crochet into the same stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that should leave you with 19 stitches in your round. What we currently look like. The nose looks a little crooked. It does. It does. We're then going to work 2 rows of 19 single crochet around for a combined total of 38 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 36, 37, 38. And in row 10, we're going to start with 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, and then 2 repeats of a single crochet 3 together. That's 1, 2, 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 more single crochet 3 togethers. 1 and 2, and 2 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1 and 2. There we go. So we're down to 11 stitches now, and this should be a relatively loose fit. You should have a little bit of room around your opening, and my finger does go all the way to the tip of the nose. So at this point, I am going to stop and pop my safety eyes in. If you're using safety eyes today, I do suggest you do it now. We're going to pop those into row 6, just kind of on either side of the head. Now, I do have long safety eye stems. Honestly, you don't even notice them, or I don't even notice them. And part of that is because we've flared the head out so much that the stems just find places to be. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll just chuck one in loosely here. I'll wriggle them around a bit once I've got both of them in. That needs to come up one. So I'm just looking and making sure that his eyes point vaguely the same way. I think that's pretty good. And I will snap the backs on. Now, I have heard that there are ways that you can shorten the backs of these using like fire. Do whatever you feel safely. Do safely whatever you feel you must. But know that these stems are quite long on these eyes, and they don't seem to bother me once they're on. They kind of just like sit up here in the top of the head, and my finger is in the bottom of the head. You'll be pleased to know that I did not nail the eye position, but that's okay. He's just going to look a little more severe than the others that we've made. So once again, we're at a point where your head can diverge down 2 paths. The small path, which is the one that I used to make mine, and the large path, which is the one that I used to make Mr. Bones. So to make a large head at this point, you just work 2 rows of 11 single crochet for a combined total of 22 stitches. And I'll chuck that up in the top corner of the screen. But to make a small one, you work 3 single crochet, or 1, 2, 3, a decrease, a single crochet, another decrease, and then 3 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1, 2, and 3, and then 9 single crochet around. 1, 2, 7, 8, and 9. Now, regardless of the size, I'm swapping to my 4.25mm hook, and we're going to work some chain 8 join as you go ribbing. So this is the same as we've done for the legs. It's just we start with a chain of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so we are working rows of 7 slip stitches. Now the opening at the base might feel a little tight, but if you just get in there and stretch it a little bit, straight on. So there is my head, and I just gotta, let's try a different approach this time, shall we? Let's just weave it through all the way back to the base. There we go. And for this one here, with the legs, we kind of stopped the fit halfway, like kind of at just below the second knuckle. With the head, you do want it to go almost all the way down to the base of the finger. In fact, it wouldn't be the end of the world if it did go all the way to the base of the finger. Hello. We're going down the slippery slope of getting distracted again. So we have some other pieces to make for this head, specifically the little horns. And they are a super cute, easy little piece. We're just going to start with a magic ring of 4, same size for everybody. Three and 4. And then we're going to work 4 rows of 4 single crochet for a combined total of 16 stitches. Now, if you find rows of 4 way too hard to work, I get it, I do. Make a magic ring of 5 and work them as rows of 5 instead. It just means that the horns will be a little bit bigger. There we go. And finish off. So there is 1, and you are going to need 2 of those. And they are going to be sewn on just basically directly on top of the eyebrow over each eye. Do not pin these on and then stick your finger in, okay? General safety rules apply. So this will go approximately there. So I'm going to pop that to one side. Ding. That's kind of the front part. That's the cute little head part of our dragon. So the next thing we're going to do is make this band. Now the point of this band is that it fits over the middle 3 fingers, and basically it just has to be a small piece of ribbing that can fit neatly around that spot on whichever hand you're making this for. So this isn't join as you go ribbing, now we're just doing regular ribbing. So I do still suggest having a 4.25mm hook for this. And we're just going to start by chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Pull that 5th one tight because it is a turning chain. And work 4 slip stitches back down those chains. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1 and turn. In the back loops only, work 4 slip stitches back up. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1 and turn, and we're just going to repeat that row, that 4 slip stitches in the back loops only, chain 1 and turn, until you have a band that fits with a slight stretch around your middle 3 fingers. Now if you do need some indication as to how big that should be, mine's going to be about 35 rows in total. There we go. So I'm going to trim that off, leaving a long tail, and that fits with a little bit of a stretch around those 3 fingers. And I'm just going to sew those 2 ends together to form a band. So there is the wing band. Ding! The next piece we're going to make is the body, and I'm going to be specifically making the body that we made for Mr. Bones' one. It's a nicer version of the dragon. With mine, I made a mistake, made it too long, had to fold it up and sew it in place, and just like, this is clearly a prototype when it comes to that part of the body. The trick with this piece is making it as wide as the back of your hand, right? So that's going to differ from person to person. For me today, we're going to be chaining 12. And then turning and working 11 half double crochet back along those chains. So a half double crochet is when you yarn over your hook, insert your hook into the stitch and yarn over and pull up a loop. So you've got 3 loops in total on your hook, then yarn over and pull through all 3. So there is our first half double crochet, and we'll be working 11 of those in total the whole way across. So that's how much real estate on the back of my hand this thing is taking up. Chain 1 and turn. And we're going to work 11 half double crochet back across. Now in the simplest form of this pattern, you can just continue to do rows of 11 the whole way down until you have like a rough square or rectangle that fits the back of your hand. However, for ours, we want to go a little bit more special with that. And so we're going to start incorporating some spike stitching and some little treble crochet spikes down the spine as well. So in row 4, we're going to start with 2 repeats of a half double crochet, and then a spike stitch. So a spike stitch is just a single crochet, but instead of working through the loops at the top of the stitch, you follow that stitch down until you find the original opening that that stitch was worked into, and you work your single crochet through that opening instead. It just creates a little bit of a different texture, a little bit of a spike. That's why it's called a spike stitch. So there is our first repeat, and we do it again. Half double crochet and a spike stitch. You can, of course, replace these spike stitches with half double crochet if you prefer. We're then going to work another half double crochet, but we're going to change to our yellow so that we can work the spike in the middle of the back. So a few color changes coming up. They're not mandatory, but they do add a little certain something. Just like that. Then we're going to work a treble crochet, changing back to our teal. So we have a little knobbly treble crochet there. And then once again in our dark color, we're going to work a half double crochet. And then 2 repeats of a spike stitch and a half double crochet. So that's our first one, and we do that again. Spike stitch and a half double crochet. Chain 1 and turn. Row 5 is just 11 half double crochet back across. 1, 2, 10, 11. Chain 1 and turn. And we're going to repeat that pair of rows 2 more times. So row 6 is exactly the same as row 4. So we work 2 repeats of a half double crochet and a spike stitch. That's 1, half double crochet and a spike stitch. That's 2. Then half double crochet, changing to our yellow. And a treble crochet, changing to our teal. Then a half double crochet and 2 repeats of a spike stitch and a half double crochet back to the end of the row. Chain 1 and turn. Work 11 half double crochet back across. Chain 1 and turn. And row 8 is the exact same as both row 4 and row 6. So we're going to just work another row like that. Chain 1 and turn at the end of the row. And then we have just 2 more rows of 11 half double crochet. Chaining 1 and turning at the end of each row. So there we go. That is the main square of the body. And next comes one of the most time-consuming steps that there is, which is to add the ribbing around the base. But first off, that's as much room as this is taking up on my hand. So I'm going to trim off my yellow. And I'm going to change back to my 4.25mm hook. And we're going to start by working chain 10 join as you go ribbing along the base of this piece. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is just back along the row that we just did in row 10. So that means that it's 9 slip stitches for each of the rows of it. And then when we run out of stitches along the base of this piece, we're going to swap to unattached ribbing, which is what we did for that wing band earlier. So we can just carry on afterwards until that band fits completely around your wrist. So there we go. That's about right. I've just finish off and leave quite a lot of tail just so that I can use that to sew various bits on. Starting with sewing those 2 edges together. So there's the body piece. So that goes over. And this has pins in it. So we do not put this on, but it goes there. So there is the body piece done. Ding! So the next piece we need to make are some little wings. So to do that, we're going to start in our light color. And we're going to start by chaining 19. That's 19. And I'm going to pull that last one tightly because it's our turning chain. And we're going to turn. Starting in the second chain from our hook, we're going to start with a slip stitch, 5 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a single crochet 3 together, 1, 2, 3, 9 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, and 9, and then chain 1 and turn. Row 3 starts with 8 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. A single crochet 3 together, and then 3 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work a slip stitch to turn, which just means we'll work a slip stitch into the next stitch and turn, and then skip the slip stitch we just worked. So row 4 is skipping that slip stitch, 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, a single crochet 3 together, a single crochet, and then a double crochet, which is when you yarn over your hook, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you've got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through the first 2, and then yarn over and pull through the second 2. So that's our double crochet. Then a treble crochet, which you've done a few of now, where you yarn over twice to start with. Another double crochet, a single crochet, and then 2 slip stitches, 1 and 2. Finish off. So that's the first part of the wing. Then I want you to grab your darker color and attach it to your hook using a slip knot. And we're going to be starting at the start of our starting chain and working along those original chain stitches. So you can reattach by slip stitching and then chaining 1 and then working your first stitch over the top, or you can just work a standing single crochet into that first chain. So that's 1, and we're going to work 8 more of those up the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 9 in total. Then we're kind of at the top of this little like wing tip, and all into that same opening we're going to work a single crochet, chain 2 quite tightly, and then a second single crochet into the opening. It's going to give it just a nice little corner. Then it's 7 single crochet, 1, 2, 6, 7, and slip stitch into the end and finish off. Now do leave yourself quite a long tail of yarn here as well, because we do need to weave it back to the base to hide it away. So I'm just going to weave this now along these blue stitches back here where we can tuck it away into the body pieces. There we go. So there is our first little wing piece, and we do need 2 of those. So pop those to one side, and we have one final piece to make. Ding! And that is the tail. Now I do consider the tail that I've done on the previous dragons to be needlessly complicated. So I have modified it into a simpler version, just because the original plan was for this to be like a fidget tail, and I don't think it really works. So I've come up with a different one for you guys today. So we're going to start in our dark color and work up a magic ring of 6. We're then going to work 6 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Row 3 is 5 single crochet and then an increase. Row 4 is 6 single crochet and then an increase. And row 5 is 7 single crochet and then an increase. We're then going to work 4 single crochet, changing to our yellow. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then a treble crochet, changing back to our blue. 2, and 4 single crochet back to the start of our round. Then row 7 is 4 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4. An increase will fall into our yellow stitch, and 4 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Row 8 starts with 5 single crochet, changing to our yellow. That's 4, and in the 5th one we're changing to our yellow. We're going to work a treble crochet, changing back to our blue. And then 5 single crochet back to the start of our round. Row 9 starts with 2 single crochet, an increase, 3 single crochet, an increase, and then 3 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1, 2, 3. So that should leave you with 12 stitches in your round at the end of row 9. Row 10 then starts with 2 single crochet, 1 and 2, an increase, 5 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, an increase, and then 3 single crochet back to the start of your round. 1, 2, 3. So that should leave you with 14 stitches in your round at the end of row 10. Row 11 starts with 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and then an increase, and 2 single crochet, changing to our yellow. 1 and 2. 1 yellow treble crochet, changing back to our blue, and 2 single crochet, an increase, and 4 single crochet back to the start of our round. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Row 12 starts with 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, an increase, and then 2 repeats of 4 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase. That's our first one. We're going to do that again. 4 single crochet, and an increase. 2 single crochet back to the start of our round. That should leave you with 19 stitches in your round, and we're just going to work 19 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 17, 18, and 19. So there we are, and finish off. Now you can be tempted to put a, oh, you will let me go. Now you can be tempted to stick a little bit of stuffing down inside this tail. It can be a trick, it's up to you. Put a little bit down at the tip, leave most of it empty if you do feel the need to stuff. But there is our finished tail. Ding! So there is our finished tail. And those are all of the pieces that we need for our dragon. So now it is just a matter of going through and sewing the pieces together. Now, if you have your hand available and you are trying to make it to fit you, I do suggest trying this on to help space things out correctly. For example, I'll slide this on over my wrist. I can then use my own hand to work out how much, if any, overlap we need between these two pieces, because you could sew it all the way to the front of this piece if you needed to help shorten it, or sit it at the back like we probably will today. Same thing with the dragon head. You might need to like overlap some of your pieces a little bit. So I'm going to start by sewing the horns to the dragon head, being really careful not to sew the head shut. Then I'm going to pin and sew the wing band to the top of the body piece. Once again, just using the sides of my hand to help space those pieces out correctly. Then I'm going to grab the headpiece and I'm going to sew the top part of that neck opening to the wing band, just in the middle there so that everything lines up nicely. I'm going to pin and sew the wings to the body piece, just kind of either side of where that wing band sits. They should sit fairly forward on the body. Try and think about it where like the shoulder blades would sit. And then finally, I'm going to flatten out the opening of that tail and I'm going to sew it to the back of the body piece on top of where that wristband is sitting. And there is our finished dragon puppet. So yeah, I hope this was helpful for you today. I understand it is an imperfect pattern, but I wanted to share what I had as a starting point for you all so that you guys could like take it and run with it a little bit.
Just like that, I have 3 of them. Careful. Once you have one, they do start to multiply.
So there is our finished dragons. I hope you had fun making them with me today. I hope it was enough information so that you could make one that would fit your hand, not just my hand. I do understand that Mr. Bones and I have very similar sized hands. But yeah, let me know in the comments how you went. Okay, bye!